Hey friends, it's Dr. Brenda, founder of the Gutsy Women Club, where women dare to dream and take bold actions to follow their heart's journey. It's Gutsy Women Wednesday. Dolly likes Gutsy Women Wednesday, so yep, she may be hanging around here in the background. Hey, I am experimenting with a new thing, so I'm featuring women through history who've done some gutsy things, and part of this is fun for me. I get the liberty of investigating, doing a little bit of research on some usually relatively unknown women. Today I'm going to bring you someone who was a celebrity in her time. Now, you may not have heard of her, and that's cool too, because I love introducing you to folks that you might not have heard about. Hey, please subscribe below. I've got lots of stuff going on my YouTube channel. If you already subscribed, thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it so much. All right. Today, we're going to talk about Emma Rowena Gatewood, born in 1887, died in 1973. Now, you may know her by the terms, or what she was known by at the time. She was called Grandma Gatewood. I'm going to try not to call her Grandma Gatewood, because we use the word grandma in this society as to sort of signal, an older woman like doing something unexpected. She's got a first name too. She's her own person. We're not identified by whether we're a mom or an aunt or a grandma, or we shouldn't be. So Grandma Gatewood, she is Emma Gatewood. All right, guys, that's my little sociological twist on things these days. So this is an image. Let's see. Here we go. So I've got an image of her here. Yep, it does say Grandma Gatewood on it. And I've got some excerpts I'm gonna read from this really neat book. I'm gonna have a link in the description, but this is a book by Ben Montgomery, Grandma Gatewood's Walk, the inspiring story of the woman who saved the Appalachian Trail. Now, while I was on the East Coast, and I lived in Virginia for almost 20 years, so I'm familiar with the Appalachian Trail, and I've only hiked very short segments of it, so I give kudos to anybody who's even hiked a section of it, or let alone the entire trail. So, okay, my head is covering up Dolly, so I'm going to move over a bit. There you go. All right, Dolly, are you happy? And so let me start by telling you a couple of just simple statistics. Emma Gatewood is the first solo woman Appalachian Trail through hiker. In 1955, she hiked the entire trail. That's 2,168 miles. And I'm telling you, even being on small pieces of it, that is a hell of a tough trail. She was 67 years old. Okay, she is the first person, male or female, to complete it 3 times. In 1959, at the age of 71, she hiked 2,000 miles of the Oregon Trail. Okay, so really curious, what got her into hiking? How did she end up doing this, especially at that age? I'm in my late 50s, and boy, the knees are, it's kind of tough going downhill. So how the heck did she do this? So a few things about her childhood. Yeah, Dolly needs my attention, don't you, my dear? She's born into a family of 15 kids in Ohio. Her father turned to drinking and gambling after his leg was amputated in the Civil War, so it was up to her mom, Evelyn Caldwell, to really keep the family together and do everything. Her education, this was not atypical. Her education ended at the 8th grade, but she loved to learn, so she reportedly, loved reading encyclopedias. She taught herself about wildlife and plants. And at age 19, she gets married to 27-year-old Perry Gatewood, P.C. Gatewood. He's a college-educated teacher, and he later became a tobacco farmer. Okay, so that's the very early part of her life, and I'm going to read you now an excerpt from Ben Montgomery's book. Okay, give you a little bit of feel for this. She stood 5 feet 2 and weighed 150 pounds, and the only survival training she had were lessons learned earning calluses on her farm. She had no map, no sleeping bag, no tent. She was blind without her glasses, and she was utterly unprepared if she faced the wrath of a snowstorm, not all that rare on the trail. She had prepared for the trek the only way she knew how. She began walking around the block and extended it a bit more each time until she was satisfied by the burn she felt in her legs. By April, she was hiking 10 miles a day. Now, she had 11 kids, and they're all grown up, they're all independent. That's when she really starts to thrive, and she begins her hiking journey. And here's what Ben has to say. All 11 of them were grown anyhow and independent. They had their own children to raise and bills to pay and lawns to mow, the price of participation in the great immobile American dream. I'm going to read that one more time. They had their own children to raise and bills to pay and lawns to mow, the price of participation in the great immobile American dream. She was past all that. She'd send a postcard. Okay, so kids are independent. She's like, you know what? I did my job. I raised you guys. You're taking care of the house. You're paying the bills. This is my time. Now, reporters, journals, she became a celebrity in her time. I mean, on Sports Illustrated, national newspapers covered her journey once they found there was a little old lady on the Appalachian Trail. So in her time, she became a celebrity, and everyone would ask her, why? Why'd you go out on the Appalachian Trail? Why are you hiking? Why are you doing this? And this is again from Ben Montgomery's book. Why? Because it was there, she'd say. It seemed like a good lark, she'd say. She'd never betray the real reason. She'd never show the newspapermen and television cameras her broken teeth or busted ribs, or talk about the town that kept dark secrets, or the night she spent in a jail cell. Whoa, okay. There's a lot more going on here with Emma. So we stopped at, she gets married to this, bright guy, right? He's a college-educated teacher. They have 11 children. Now, she's got to do the household duties, but back in this time, so again, she's born in 1887. It's the early 1900s. She's married at age 19. He also puts her to work because, hey, you know what? He's the head of the household. And so she's got to burn tobacco fields, build fences, mix cement. She's got a really, it's a very challenging life, no doubt. Now, reportedly shortly after they get married, he begins beating her. And he's known in the town as a pretty violent man. So in 1924, he's convicted of manslaughter for killing a man in an argument. But that sentence is suspended because, after all, he's got a wife and 9 children and a farm at home. So, he can't spend time in jail or prison. So that sentence is suspended. Now, here's the thing. Emma recalls being beaten to death on several occasions. And when he became violent, she would run into the woods where she found peace and solitude. Okay, in 1939, that's when he beats her so severely that he breaks her teeth, he cracks her ribs in defense. She throws a sack of flour at him, and he has her arrested. She did not obey him. So she actually ends up in the jail cell. He also threatened to institutionalize her, and this is also the husband's prerogative. There's something mentally unstable about her, right? So send her to an institution. While she's in jail, now some said it was the town's judge, others the town's mayor, but nevertheless, someone noticed how bad, the situation was and decided to help her. And she finally got a divorce in 1941. So she was about 45 years old at that time. Divorce in 1941, very, very, very rare. So usually had to show cruel and unusual punishment. So that is really, I believe, when she felt her life began. So she had 3 children at home. They become independent. All of her children become independent. And that's when she claims her independence. So what got her started was a National Geographic piece that they did on the Appalachian Trail in 1949. And they wrote the trail as if anyone in, I'm using quotes here, of normal good health can hike the trail. No special skill or training needed. So she saw these beautiful pictures and the description of the trail, and she decided she was going to do that. After all, you don't need any special skills, right? So in July of 1954, age 66, she decides she's going to start in Maine and hike down to Georgia. Well, it didn't take, she didn't last very long. She got lost. She broke her glasses. She ran out of food. The folks, the rangers talked her into going back home, go back to Ohio, go back, this is not for a woman, especially not for an older woman. Okay. Famous last words, right? So she took that as a challenge. And in 1955, she's 67 years old. Now she's going to start on the Georgia side. She's going to hike from south to north, hike to Maine. She did it. Took her 146 days. Now what she's known as, I think it's like an ultralight trekker, because she had almost nothing with her. She wore Keds tennis shoes, didn't have a tent, and really, didn't have a whole lot with her. But she became a celebrity and was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. 1957, 2 years later, she thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail yet again. In 1964, now in the meantime, 1959, at only 71, she hiked 2,000 miles of the Oregon Trail. Okay? Whoa, man, that is quite the feat. Finally, 1964, she is 76 years old. This time, she hiked the Appalachian Trail in sections, so she completed the entire Appalachian Trail 3 times. So, let's put this all in perspective, because part of this is, again, we're going back in time. So, there's no birth control back then. So you had a lot of kids. Some didn't make it, but she came from a family of 15. Her education was cut short. I am sure she was responsible for taking care of the other children. So she grew up she had a very obviously strong mom, because the mom had to do most of the work because the father was an alcoholic, gambling type of guy. And so the amount of resilience that she has is pretty astounding. To get a divorce in 1940, early 1940s, that was pretty phenomenal. But it was also that somebody stepped in. Somebody saw what was going on. So I had read this piece from Ben Montgomery's book about the town that kept dark secrets. And that is what domestic violence was back then. Domestic violence did not become a criminal act until the 1970s. And my early career actually was evaluating law enforcement and prosecution components of the 1994 Violence Against Women Act. So all of this history of domestic violence speaks personally to me, because I have seen how the domestic violence, the women's rights movement have changed the situation so that women can get some protections in the cases of domestic violence, and it's not all one-sided. The fact that she spent a night in jail because she defended herself by throwing a bag of flour at her husband. Meanwhile, she suffers from broken ribs and broken teeth. You can see how what kind of society she lived in, that she felt like, you know what, I can't do anything. Her escape was nature. Her escape were those trails. Her escape was the outdoors. So it's very interesting to me, because I don't think this information became available later. And clearly when people asked her why, she didn't really tell them why. But to be able to walk away, I think walking probably became a way, hiking became a way to hike away from that situation in which she lived. And she was beaten nearly to death several times. And so, yeah, definitely a gutsy woman. If I'm going to have that link to Ben Montgomery's book in the description, take a look at it. It's a really good read. I was pretty fascinated with this story. And hey, if you are dealing with a domestic violence relationship, there is help. Connect with a local domestic violence shelter. There are ways, there are safety plans, and work to get yourself out of that situation safely. And think about Emma Gatewood. She didn't really start her life, her own personal life, until she was about 45, till the kids were out, till she got that divorce. So, hey, be safe out there. And hey, if you've hiked the Appalachian Trail, I'd love to hear all about it in the comments, because that is, I personally, I'm an RVer. I love hiking, but I love sleeping in a nice soft bed at night. I love staying warm and dry. So I'm a bit of a wimp when it comes to hiking. If you've done it, congratulations. Hey, that's it for Gutsy Women Wednesday. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next Wednesday. If you have any ideas, any suggestions on women that I can profile who were gutsy, I'd love to hear about it. All right, take care. Take care of yourself. Be gutsy. Bye-bye.